The sound of distant thunder rolls across the horizon. A soft wind drifts through the clouds, carrying the promise of a timeless story. Welcome, listener, to a journey beyond history, where myths breathe. Above us, the sky is alive, filled with whispers of gods and legends. Tonight, we turn our eyes upward, to the heavens and the king who rules them. Zeus, master of thunder, bringer of storms, and guardian of balance. His presence commands awe, not only for his power, but for his wisdom. This is not only a tale of strength, but of harmony and wonder. Every clap of thunder carries a lesson. Every raindrop holds meaning. Imagine yourself on a high mountain, air alive with electric breath. The sky darkens, not with fear, but with a sense of anticipation. A sudden flash tears across the clouds, both fierce and beautiful. In that moment, the world feels fragile, yet eternal. This is the realm of Zeus, where storms are signs of guidance. Here begins our tale. The Storm Reign of Zeus. The sky has always been more than a canvas above. To the ancients, it was alive, breathing, and full of secrets. Before Zeus, the heavens were restless and untamed. Winds stirred without direction. Storms rose without reason. Mortals looked upward, waiting for order to come. The sky was a kingdom without a king, vast and wild. Clouds drifted aimlessly. Lightning burned without meaning. Mortals feared the heavens as much as they revered them. Rain could bless their crops, or sweep them away in floods. Winds could carry ships to safety or scatter them at sea. The storm was a riddle no human could solve. But every story turns. Chaos always gives way to balance. That turning began with the birth of a destined child. When Zeus opened his eyes, the skies stirred in reply. Clouds swirled, as if greeting their future master. Thunder rumbled softly, not in anger, but in recognition. Zeus was born different, strong in form and in spirit. The elements chose him: lightning, rain, and wind. The heavens had given him their voice and their trust. Yet even destiny must learn before it leads. Zeus grew by watching the sky above him. He listened to wind, rain, thunder, and silence. He began to hear the language of the storm. Every breeze spoke of change. Every cloud told a story. Lightning became a message, thunder a heartbeat of the sky. To Zeus, storms were not destruction, but music, a symphony of grace, power, and hidden meaning. He saw storms as reminders of balance and renewal. As he grew, so did his bond with the heavens. When he raised his hand, the air seemed to listen. When he spoke, clouds gathered to hear his voice. The storms respected him, not out of fear but trust. Mortals began to notice a shift in the skies. Rains no longer fell in chaos, but in rhythm. Winds, once cruel, now guided journeys across land and sea. They believed someone was watching from above. Myths of Zeus took root, carried in song and story, not as terror, but as wonder and protection. Thunder became the voice of justice and order. Lightning marked authority, bright against the dark sky. Yet Zeus was still becoming, the sky still awakening. The heavens waited for his full rise to the throne. Storms were no longer chaos, but promises of balance. They reminded the world that a guardian was coming. The sky was alive with purpose and anticipation. In the heartbeat of thunder, a reign was about to begin. Every great reign begins with a moment of destiny. For Zeus, that moment was his birth into the story of the heavens. The myths say he entered life with a promise in the air. The earth trembled, the wind stirred, the clouds gathered to greet him. It was not a storm of fury, but of recognition. From the start, Zeus was unlike any other child. He carried a calm presence, a sense of hidden balance. Those who saw him felt something greater, though unnamed. When he cried for the first time, the skies answered. Thunder rolled softly, not in anger, but in lullaby. Even the heavens seemed to welcome their guardian. As he grew, Zeus revealed a bond to the elements. Where others saw drifting clouds, he saw speaking shapes. Where others heard wind, he heard whispers of the sky. The world above was alive, and only he could listen. People began to notice the changes around him. Rains followed his presence, sometimes gentle, sometimes strong. Lightning touched horizons when he raised his hand. They knew he was chosen, not just human, but more. The skies had found their companion in him. Yet Zeus did not rise to power in haste. He was a listener before he became a leader. He watched storms gather and fade, learning their rhythm. He studied clouds carrying both shadow and light. He discovered storms were not chaos, but cycles of renewal. This bond gave him peace where others felt fear. While mortals trembled at thunder, Zeus heard its voice. While they hid from lightning, he admired its brilliance. The storm became his teacher, guiding his purpose. One night, Zeus stood alone on a hillside. The sky above was restless, heavy with rain and light. People sought shelter, but he remained in place. He stretched out his hand to the sky above. Lightning leapt across the clouds in answer. The heavens had chosen him openly at last. From then, Zeus was known as the Thunder Bearer. He carried the power of the skies as a sign of balance. And balance was what the world most needed. Storms no longer terrified but inspired mortals. Rains upon their fields became gifts to cherish. Thunder rolling through mountains became his voice. Storms shifted from fear to guidance. They became promises of order and protection. Zeus bore this bond with humility. He treated storms not as possessions, but as sacred trust. Thunder was not his to control, but his to carry. People called him protector of rain, voice of the heavens. They saw him as keeper of balance, guardian above. But Zeus thought only of duty, not glory. He was part of the world, not above it. The storm was not his crown, but his responsibility. He prepared for rain not by seizing power. He prepared by listening to the heavens themselves. He chose to guide with wisdom, not fear. And so the child became the bearer of thunder. The bond between earth and sky was sealed forever. The reign of Zeus had not yet begun, but its promise lived in every storm that touched the world. There is a moment when silence teaches more than thunder. For Zeus, that moment came in the gentle voices of clouds. The clouds were his companions before the throne of Olympus. They drifted endlessly, carrying both shadows and light. To most, they were only passing forms in the sky. But to Zeus, they were alive storytellers of the heavens. As a child, he lay on the earth and watched them. Hours passed. As he followed their journeys above, he saw them gather before rain, break apart with the wind. Every movement had purpose. Every shape held meaning. At first, it was only watching and wonder. But soon, Zeus began to hear them with his heart. The clouds whispered patience, rhythm, balance, and timing. They taught him power was knowing when to wait. Their voices were gentle, almost like a song. Calm skies spoke of peace and the gift of silence. Storm clouds urged balance, urging care with their voices. Sunlit skies laughed, reminding him storms always pass. Through them, he learned leadership meant listening. He waited before calling storms, listening before moving winds. The people below noticed storms no longer came without warning. The skies prepared them gently, guiding them before rain. It was as if the clouds themselves spoke through him. One tale tells of a village suffering long drought. The earth cracked, rivers dried, and people prayed for rain. Zeus lay beneath the sky and listened deeply. The clouds whispered of waters far away and winds. He raised his hand with care, not with force. The winds shifted, carrying rain to thirsty fields. The people rejoiced, but Zeus knew it was listening. Another tale tells of a storm across mountains and seas. The people feared, but Zeus listened to the clouds. They whispered of release, of letting the storm pass. Zeus guided the winds to the open ocean. The storm roared far from land, sparing villages below. The people called it a miracle. Zeus called it wisdom. The clouds were his teachers and guides forever. They showed him that strength must be tempered with care. True power was not shouting, but hearing what others cannot. As he grew, Zeus carried this lesson with him. The thunderbolt was not destruction, but guided wisdom. The whispers taught when to use it, when to wait. The people told stories of clouds moving for him. They said he carried their voices as guidance. Zeus stayed humble, claiming no wisdom as his own. He carried the whispers like a sacred trust. The clouds gave him wisdom. He gave loyalty. Thunder awed, lightning dazzled, but clouds were the heart. Through them, Zeus learned a ruler must listen. The world above was alive with quiet voices. Zeus became their listener, interpreter, and guardian. The whisper of the clouds followed him forever, etched into every storm he would one day command. There comes a time when a gift reveals itself. For Zeus, it came not suddenly, but like a secret from the sky. He was no longer a child when he felt it first. The clouds had been his teachers, the winds his companions. One day, the heavens stirred with something new. The air grew heavy, silence stretched across the mountains. The people looked up, uneasy, sensing something near. Birds stopped singing, trees stood still. The world held its breath. And then, from the sky's heart, a sound came. A deep rumble rolled across the heavens, alive and steady. Zeus raised his head and felt it in his chest. The first thunder had spoken, and it spoke to him. The people feared and hid in their homes. But Zeus stood tall, eyes lifted to the clouds. The thunder was not a threat, but a greeting. In its voice, he heard recognition and promise. The sky was now his partner, not just his teacher. That night, he sat upon a cliff, restless and awake. He listened to echoes circling the mountains. Was it a gift or a burden? Was it his alone or for all? The clouds drifted gently above, whispering again. This is not the end of learning, they said. This is only the beginning of becoming. The next morning, he walked to the villages. The people whispered of thunder. Some feared, some wondered. They looked at Zeus as if touched by the storm. But he claimed no power, only a promise. The thunder's voice was not meant to harm. It was a shield, a protection for all. Seasons turned, and thunder returned again. Each time, Zeus felt it stronger within himself. It became a rhythm, a heartbeat of the sky. And one day, the thunder answered his call. The air tingled, the sky darkened, lightning flashed. The thunder roared, louder than before. Zeus raised his voice, not in pride, but in harmony. The thunder replied, a dialogue of storm and God. The mountains shook, the earth trembled, yet no harm came. From then, Zeus was more than a listener. He was bearer of thunder, bonded to the sky. But he remembered the lessons of the clouds. Patience, balance, and care guided his gift. Stories spread of the protector among the people. They said thunder rolled when Zeus walked. Lightning followed in his steps across the land. But Zeus knew better. He was no master. He was companion of the storm, not its owner. He carried thunder not as weapon, but as promise. The first thunder had chosen him forever. It gave him voice, a bond of sound and sky. The mountains would remember that sacred day. The people would tell of the one who answered. Zeus, the thunder bearer, chosen by the storm. Thunder had chosen Zeus, but thunder was only the beginning. Its voice rumbled with power, yet it remained only sound. What came next would forever change him. Lightning. One night, the sky grew restless and dark. Clouds gathered fast. Winds rushed across valleys. The people lit fires, praying for safety. Zeus stood upon a ridge, feeling the storm grow. He listened, waited, and the sky answered with light. A flash tore across the heavens, too bright for eyes. Mountains glowed white, then fell into silence. But Zeus stood firm, unshaken by the blaze. Thunder followed, rolling like a mighty drumbeat. Another flash came, striking a tree nearby. The people screamed, fearing wrath from above. But Zeus felt not wrath, only wonder. The lightning was wild, alive with purpose. It was the fire of the heavens, reaching down. Zeus stretched out his hand in invitation. The lightning answered, leaping into his palm. The world froze. The winds held their breath. A burning warmth surged through his body. It did not hurt. It filled him with light. When it faded, a spark remained in his hand. It flickered, danced, then shaped into a bolt. The first lightning bolt of Zeus was born. The clouds thundered as if in approval. The people saw the glow and knelt in awe. But Zeus held it gently, without pride. This was no weapon, but a promise. The power to protect, to guide, to light. That night, he returned to the village. He showed them the lightning in his hand. They feared, but he spoke calmly. This is not fire to harm. It is light to guide. He raised the bolt, breaking the night's darkness. The village glowed silver, fear melting away. Children stepped closer, eyes wide with wonder. For the first time, they did not fear storms. Word spread beyond the mountains quickly. Some called him dangerous, others chosen. But Zeus remained humble with his gift. Lightning was not his to own. It was the sky's eternal fire shared with him. He was its bearer, its keeper alone. In time, he learned to shape it. The bolt answered swift and sharp. With focus, it lit valleys. With restraint, it warmed a fire. Never once did he use it in anger, for each spark reminded him of the cloud's whispers. Power without wisdom is chaos, but power with care is harmony. The people grew to trust him deeply. When storms came, they watched for his light. They believed he carried the storm's heart, and so he did, faithfully and humbly. Lightning was not only energy, it was a covenant with the heavens, a gift tying his spirit to the storm. The first thunder had claimed him. The first lightning made him whole. The storm was no longer around him. It lived within him now. And Zeus had become its living flame. Every gift carries a weight, and every weight demands a choice. For Zeus, the lightning was more than a spark. It was a question: what would he do with it? The people looked at him with awe and with fear. Children pointed to the sky and whispered his name. Farmers prayed for rain, sailors for safe passage. Zeus had no throne, no crown, no scepter, but lightning in his hand was all those things and more. It was a crown of fire, a voice of heaven, a mark of destiny. One evening, he climbed the highest peak. The sky glowed crimson and gold as the sun sank. He carried the bolt, faint yet alive, in his hand. There, with heavens wide before him, he spoke. "I have been given this gift," he said, "but gifts are not for pride. They are for service. I will not wield this for myself, but for the world." The wind rose, circling him like a cloak. Clouds gathered slowly, drawn by his words. Thunder rolled, soft at first, then strong. It was as if the heavens leaned closer to listen. Zeus lifted the bolt high, its light blazing. "I make this oath," he declared. "I will be guardian of the skies, protector of the people, listener of the clouds, bearer of thunder and lightning." The sky answered with a great arc of lightning. It did not strike, but danced above him like a crown. The mountains glowed, rivers shimmered, valleys echoed thunder. The people below fell to their knees. They did not hear the words, but they felt the vow. The earth carried it to them, whispering of a protector. From that day, Zeus was more than a gifted child of storm. He was a sworn guardian, bound to the sky. And the storm became his covenant, not chaos. But oaths are heavy, never carried easily. Zeus felt the weight settle like a mantle of clouds. He knew storms would test him, and so would the hearts of men. There were days when the skies raged fiercely. Floods threatened valleys, winds tore at villages. Each time Zeus remembered his oath. He guided storms away, softened their blow, shielded the earth. There were nights he sat alone on peaks. Stars shone cold above, lightning warm in his hand. He wondered if he had chosen, or been chosen. But the clouds whispered back, "An oath is lived." The people trusted him more deeply. They no longer prayed to the sky in fear. They spoke to Zeus as to a guardian, not a stranger. Fires burned at night, not from dread, but from hope. The oath changed him too. He was no longer restless or searching. Thunder was his heartbeat, lightning his hand. The sky itself was his companion. He no longer belonged to himself, but to the world. The oath was sealed, not carved in stone, not written on scrolls, but etched in lightning, sung in the whispers of the clouds. The world had a guardian now, and Zeus had a purpose greater than himself. He was the storm's chosen, bound to its voice, and in that bond, the legend of Zeus began to rise. The oath of Zeus did not go unnoticed. The sky had accepted him, but the heavens were not his alone. Beyond valleys and peaks, other divine beings stirred. For ages, unseen powers had guided the world. Rivers flowed by hidden hands. The sun blazed with radiant spirits. The seas roared with the breath of deep rulers. Now Zeus was crowned by storm and lightning, and balance trembled across the realms. One night, the stars flickered strangely. The winds hushed. The mountains held their breath. A voice deep as the ocean called out, "Zeus, bearer of the storm, you are called." The ridge faded into mist beneath him. He stood in a vast hall, suspended between sky and earth. It was the council of the gods. Thrones of light and shadow circled around him. On them sat figures vast and ancient. Each was a presence of nature itself. Sea, earth, fire, night, and Sunday. The council watched Zeus with piercing eyes. A voice of flame spoke first. "Why have you claimed the thunder?" Zeus bowed his head, but spoke firmly. "I did not claim it. It chose me. I swore to wield it not for myself, but for the world." Murmurs rippled across the circle. The river god's voice flowed next. "Many mortals make promises. Few keep them. What sets you apart?" Zeus raised his gaze. Lightning glowed faintly in his hand. "I do not stand apart. I stand with rivers, seas, earth, and sky. I am no master of storm, only its guardian." The hall grew silent. Some gods looked with suspicion. Others watched with curiosity. Then a figure of starlight rose. Her voice was calm, vast as night. "Every guardian must prove themselves. Will you stand when storms rise against you?" Zeus met her gaze without fear. "I will stand even if the storm turns against me." Thunder cracked above, though no storm was near. The gods leaned back in thought. Then the eldest spoke. "Rooted like mountains, the world is wide, balance fragile. If you are to keep your oath, join us. Not above, not apart, but among." Zeus nodded. "I do not seek a higher throne. I seek only to keep storms from tearing the world apart." Silence lingered, heavy as eternity. Then gods raised their hands one by one. Light, flame, water, and shadow alike. It was their sign of recognition. Zeus's oath was no longer his alone. The council had acknowledged it. He was no longer just a guardian of storm. He was a voice in creation's harmony. When he returned, dawn was breaking. The sky glowed with golden clouds. The lightning in his hand felt different, not lighter, not heavier, but shared. The storm was his to carry, but it was part of a greater chorus. Sea, earth, fire, sun, and night. And Zeus was no longer alone. The world had shifted again. Zeus now stood as a brother among gods, and the council had marked the beginning of his reign. Part 8. The Burden of the Storm. Power is never without cost. Even when it comes as a gift, it carries weight. Zeus bore his lightning with humility, but soon he learned the storm was not only a blessing, it was a burden. At first, the people rejoiced in his presence. They saw lightning not as destruction, but as guidance. They welcomed thunder as the heartbeat of a protector. They prayed, they sang, they told stories of the guardian of the sky. But joy is fragile. In time, expectation grew. Farmers wanted rain at the right hour. Sailors wanted calm seas for their voyages. Villages demanded storms avoid their valleys. Zeus listened to them all. He carried their hopes, their fears, their endless requests. Yet he was only one guardian, not the master of fate. The storm had its own will, wild and restless. When rains came late, people asked why he had not acted. When winds grew strong, they begged him to shield their homes. When lightning struck a tree, some whispered Zeus had failed. He did not grow angry, but he felt the weight deepen, heavier than thunderclouds. For every storm he calmed, another would rise. For every prayer he answered, 1,000 more followed. One night, burdened by voices, Zeus climbed the mountain's peak. The storm was restless above, lightning flashing in the distance. He held the bolt in his hand and spoke to the sky. "Why do they not see? I am not their master. I am their guardian. I cannot bend every wind, nor command every cloud." The storm rumbled in reply, low and steady. It was not anger, but reminder. The clouds whispered, "You are not the storm. You are its keeper." Zeus closed his eyes. He realized his burden was not to control, but to balance, not to silence storms, but to teach others to endure them, not to stop rain from falling, but to show its gift within hardship. The next morning, he walked among the villages. He spoke not as a god above, but as a companion beside. When the rain falls, it feeds your fields, he told the farmers. When the winds rise, they carry seeds to new soil. When lightning strikes, it clears the old so new life may grow. Some understood, some resisted, but slowly, people began to see storms differently. Not as curses to fear, nor favors to demand, but as rhythms of the world. Zeus was still their protector, but not their servant. He stood not to erase storms, but to ensure they did not destroy. And with this, the burden grew lighter, not because it diminished, but because it was shared. For the people learned to carry it with him. They built stronger homes, planted wiser fields, sailed with respect for the seas, and in doing so, they walked in harmony with the storm. Zeus still watched, guiding when balance faltered, but no longer did he carry the sky alone. The burden of the storm was not his weight, only it was the world's. And in that truth, his reign grew stronger, not by power, but by wisdom. For the greatest guardians are not those who carry everything. They are those who teach others to share the weight. Part 9. The Trial of Trust. Trust is a fragile thing. It takes years to build, yet it can be shaken in a single storm. Even for Zeus, the guardian of thunder, trust was not always certain. The people had begun to accept the storm as part of life. They saw rain as blessing, wind as renewal, lightning as renewal's flame. Yet in their hearts still lingered fear. Because storms do not ask permission. They arrive when they choose, fierce and sudden. One summer, clouds gathered over the coast. The sea roared, restless and wild. Fishermen begged Zeus to calm the waves so they could sail. Mothers prayed their children would not be swept away. Zeus stood at the shore, lightning in his hand. He watched dark waters churn, the tide rising high. The storm was not his to erase, it was nature's pulse, fierce but necessary. Still, the people saw only danger. "Protect us!" they cried. "Stop the storm!" Their voices were loud, desperate, accusing. Zeus raised his hand. The lightning bolt glowed, but he did not strike. Instead, he whispered to the sky, asking not for calm, but for mercy. The storm slowed, but it did not vanish. The waves still crashed. The winds still howled. When boats broke and crops washed away, many turned anger upon him. "Why did he not save us all?" they whispered. "Why does he choose silence when we cry for power?" The burden of doubt weighed heavier than thunderclouds. Zeus felt the sting of mistrust, sharp as lightning itself. He had given guidance, protection, wisdom, yet one storm unraveled it. He climbed to the mountain, seeking counsel not from gods, but from the storm. Amid roaring winds and flashing skies, he asked, "What is trust if it shatters so quickly? How can I reign if they doubt so easily?" The storm replied in whispers of rain, in hums of wind. Trust is not control. It is presence. It is standing with them through the storm. Zeus listened, and slowly, he understood. The people did not need him to erase every storm. They needed to know he would not leave them in their darkest hour. So he returned to the coast. He did not promise calm seas. He did not vow endless sunshine. Instead, he stood among them, shoulder to shoulder, in the rain. He helped rebuild their homes. He lifted stones for their walls. He spoke with fishermen, guiding them to safer waters. He showed them how to endure, not how to escape. Little by little, trust grew again. Not fragile trust built on miracles, but stronger trust built on presence. They believed, not because storms vanished, but because Zeus remained. They saw him not as a distant ruler, but a guardian who walked among them. They no longer demanded perfection. Instead, they found strength in his constancy. And Zeus, too, changed. He no longer measured his reign by storms, he stopped. He measured it by how steadfastly he stood with those who faced them. The trial of trust had not broken him. It had refined him. From that storm, Zeus emerged not only as Lord of the sky, but as companion of the earth. For trust is not about never falling. It is about knowing that when storms come, someone will rise with you again. Part 10. The Shadows of Ambition. Peace is never silent for long. When trust begins to bloom, ambition often follows. And in the halls of Olympus, ambition stirred like restless thunder. The gods had watched Zeus rise. They saw mortals honor him, call his name in prayer, seek his strength in storms. Some admired his reign, but others grew uneasy. For power, even when worn with humility, casts a long shadow. Hera, ever watchful, warned him quietly, "Do not let their songs blind you. The gods are proud, and pride does not bow easily." Zeus listened, though he did not answer. His heart was steady, but unease rippled in the clouds above. It began with whispers. Ares boasted of strength, claiming war was truer power than thunder. Poseidon thundered from the sea, saying waves carved coasts, while lightning only scarred the sky. Even Hades murmured that storms pass, but the underworld endures. Zeus did not seek to rule them as a tyrant. He sought harmony, balance, a chorus rather than a single voice. But ambition does not always seek harmony. It seeks thrones, crowns, and glory. One night, as lightning flashed across the heavens, Zeus sat alone. He thought of the people below, who trusted him not for perfection but for presence. And he thought of the gods above, whose ambitions could unravel that trust. Could the storm be shared? Could power be divided and still remain whole? These questions echoed louder than thunder in his mind. The next day, he called the gods to council once more. The great hall of Olympus shone, pillars rising like marble trees. Each god entered with sharp eyes, their power filling the chamber like fire, sea, and shadow. Zeus rose, his voice calm but firm. "Brothers, sisters, the storm is not mine alone. It is the breath of the world, the rhythm of sky and sea. If we guard it together, it will endure." Some nodded. Athena's wisdom shone in her gaze. Artemis listened with quiet respect, but others remained unmoved. Ares clenched his fists. Poseidon's trident tapped the floor like an impatient wave. Hades' silence was heavier than stone. Ambition had no patience for balance. It wanted more. The council ended without resolution. Zeus knew the storm was not only in the clouds above, it was within Olympus itself. That night, he climbed to his mountain peak. The sky was clear, stars scattered like silver sparks. He lifted his lightning and whispered not to the storm, but to himself. Power is not meant to be hoarded, nor wasted in rivalry. If they cannot see this, I must guide by example. The storm answered with silence, and in that silence was resolve. Zeus would not strike his brothers. He would not silence their ambition with force. Instead, he would hold steady, as a mountain holds against the wind. Let the storm test him. Let ambition roar. He would answer with patience, with strength rooted not in fear, but in purpose. For a king's reign is not proven in calm skies. It is proven in the shadows of ambition, when thunder threatens from within. And so the stage was set, not for battle of blades, but for trial of will. The gods would test him, and the storm would bear witness. The reign of Zeus was no longer just about storms in the sky. It was about storms in the hearts of gods themselves. Part 11. The Gift of the Storm. Storms do not only destroy, they also renew. When rain falls and lightning strikes, the earth drinks deeply, and life awakens in unexpected ways. So too was the reign of Zeus, shaped by storms but softened by wisdom. After the uneasy council, Zeus walked among mortals once more. He disguised himself as a wanderer, cloaked in simple garb, his lightning hidden, his crown unseen. He wished not to be worshipped, but to listen. In a quiet village by the river, he sat with a farmer whose crops had withered. The man spoke not of blame, but of hope that rains would return, that the earth would forgive. Zeus felt the weight of that hope more heavily than any throne. In another town, he met a mother who had lost her home to flood. She did not curse the skies. Instead, she rebuilt with patience, stone by stone, teaching her children that storms come and go, but love endures. Zeus was humbled. Mortals carried burdens far greater than thunder, yet they did not yield. They endured, they rebuilt, they rose again. And in their resilience, he saw a mirror of the sky itself. One evening, as he rested beneath an olive tree, a child approached him. The boy offered him bread, though he had little to spare. "Traveler," the boy said, "storms frighten me. Why must the sky be so loud?" Zeus knelt, his eyes gentle. "The storm is not anger," he said softly. "It is strength reminding the world that even darkness has light within it." The boy nodded, holding the words like a secret gift. And in that moment, Zeus understood. His reign was not for the gods alone. It was for the people, the children, the voices that carried hope against the wind. Returning to Olympus, he gathered the gods once more. This time, his words did not rise like thunder. They flowed like rain, steady and life-giving. "Brothers, sisters," he began, "the storm is not mine to wield as a weapon. It is ours to share as a gift. Mortals do not fear thunder as much as they fear being forgotten. We are not rulers above them. We are guardians among them." Athena's eyes brightened, for wisdom had found its echo. Apollo nodded, for light was meant to guide, not to blind. Even Hera, though stern, softened, for she saw truth in her husband's humility. But still, some gods bristled. Ambition is not easily tamed. Ares longed for glory, Poseidon for dominion, Hades for permanence. Yet, for the first time, their silence was not rejection, it was reflection. Zeus lifted his hand, and a small bolt of lightning danced in his palm. It did not strike. It did not roar. It shimmered like a torch, gentle, yet unyielding. "This," he said, "is not a weapon, but a reminder. Storms may terrify, but they also nourish. They clear the air, they bring rain, they awaken life. Let us wield our gifts not to rule, but to serve." The hall grew quiet. For the first time, even ambition seemed to pause, caught in the glow of something greater than power. It was purpose. That night, thunder rolled softly across the heavens, not in fury, not in warning, but as a lullaby, a promise that storms could cradle as well as challenge. Zeus stood upon the clouds, his gaze upon the world below. He did not see subjects. He saw companions, partners in a dance as old as time. The earth with its valleys and seas, the sky with its storms and stars, and the mortals who lived between, enduring, dreaming, hoping. The storm was not just his crown, it was his gift. And through it he would reign not with fear, but with the steady hand of a guardian. Thus, the reign of Zeus entered a new chapter, not of conquest, not of rivalry, but of balance. The storm still roared, but within it was peace, within it was promise, and the world, for a time, rested beneath skies both fierce and kind. The reign of Zeus, like the storm itself, was never meant to be a tale of endings. It was a rhythm, a pulse, an eternal cycle of thunder and calm, shadow, and light. Mortals looked to the sky and no longer feared it as wrathful. They saw it as a companion, unpredictable yet necessary, fierce yet generous. The storm was no longer a curse, it was a reminder that even in chaos, order could be found. A reminder that even in noise, meaning could be heard. And a reminder that even gods must serve as guardians, not rulers. Zeus had walked among them and learned. He had spoken with the weary, shared silence with the grieving, and listened to the laughter of children. Each moment was a spark that lit his heart brighter than lightning itself. And though Olympus remained a place of pride and ambition, Zeus stood firm. The shadows of envy and rivalry never truly vanished, but they no longer defined the sky. Instead, they tested him, and through each test, his reign deepened. Athena guided him with wisdom, Hera tempered his pride, and Apollo shone with the light of promise. Even Poseidon and Hades, though restless, grew quieter in their defiance. Not allies, perhaps, but no longer enemies, brothers bound by eternity. The storms of Olympus became stories. Mortals carried them in songs, in prayers, in whispered tales beneath the stars. Children asked their elders why the thunder roared, and elders answered with hope, not fear. "The sky speaks," they said, "and in its voice is strength. In its voice is promise. Zeus watches, not as a tyrant, but as a guardian. And so the storm became woven into the fabric of the world, not as punishment, not as vengeance, but as rhythm, a heartbeat of the heavens, echoing across ages. One evening, Zeus stood alone on the peak of Olympus. The clouds stretched wide, painted with the gold of sunset and the silver of coming stars. He raised his hand, and the storm stirred, not wild, but gentle. Lightning curled like ribbons across the sky. Thunder rolled like a distant drumbeat. And in that moment, he did not feel like a king. He felt like a steward, a keeper of balance between sky and earth. "Let the storm endure," he whispered. "Not for me, but for all." The wind carried his words, scattering them like seeds across valleys, oceans, and mountains. And the world answered with silence, the kind of silence that holds peace. Time would pass, as it always does. Mortals would live, love, struggle, and dream beneath the storm. New generations would rise, and old ones would rest, all beneath the eternal sky. And Zeus? He would remain, not as a figure carved only in myth, but as a presence felt in thunder, lightning, and rain. For storms are eternal, and so too was the reign of Zeus. It was not an end, but a continuation, not a final strike of lightning, but the steady hum of the sky's heartbeat. The eternal sky stretched above, vast and unbroken, and in it, the storm lived on, fierce, kind, unyielding, eternal.